Welcome to Daily Meditation with Sangha Live.
Good morning. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Sangha Live session this morning. I'm happy to be with you and share these mornings on wise communication. I'm specifically dedicated to the ouches, the bumps, and the hindrances in our communication. We're going to talk about the need and the urge to be right this morning. And before that, just the usual couple of reminders. There's the lovely checkbox, which is kind of manifests, symbols our Sangha. Feel free to say hello to each other. Feel free to share whatever you feel safe and happy to share with each other. Also put in any questions, any impulses, any resistances, any thoughts and concerns into that chat box. And if you want me to respond to that, just put it into capital letters, like question or impulse or thought, and I'd be very happy to pick it up at the end of our session. I'm going to first reflect on the urge to be right for like 15 to 20 minutes, then go into meditation. And after that, there will be time for us to share and bring up some thoughts and concerns around the theme and the topic. Okay. And if you want to, there is the option afterwards to donate to Sangha Live, and certain amount of that will go to myself as well as a form of dana, of donation, which I'm deeply grateful for. Okay. I'm sitting a bit in the dark and I don't know how to change that. Anyways, I don't think my face is the most important thing here, so may the words be beneficial rather than the video screen. Okay. The urge to be right. That is a very familiar urge we all have, and an interesting one. Yeah, I'm not sitting here and say, get rid of your urge to be right, because it's way too interesting. Why do I need to be right in this morning, in this moment? It's so important that the Buddha had a special term for this. He called that ditti tanha. It's a cling, a grasping, a hunger, an urge, a need to be right. Yeah, a need to have, to hold, to sustain a certain view, a certain perspective. Ditti tanha. So why is it so important? Let's reflect on that for a moment. We all know moments where it would feel really unpleasant. And we have been with other people who had really a hard time to shift and change and even question and even create a bit of space around their views and ways of looking. And that can create a lot of conflict. Yeah. It can create a lot of conflict when this black and white starts to build up. And it creates opposition and it creates polarization when the one person says this is true and everything else is not true. We're communicating all of a sudden truths, like unshakable, absolute truths with each other. And it's very likely that in opposition to that, another will build up, bring on their form of truth. So Ditti Tanha has a large potential for fueling conflict with each other. So it's interesting to look into it. While reflecting, and I had the privilege of doing so with my communication group as well, we came up with a couple of thoughts why it's important to be right. And you might listen inwardly while I share this, and maybe you find a few other reasons why it's sometimes important or feels important to be right, and we can add them to our chat box later. When I feel the urge to be right, there is something about my view, my perspective, my opinion, my take on things to be the right one, the correct one. Yeah. And if my view, my perspective, my way of approaching things is the right one, I'm okay to do what I do and think what I think. To be right and to have this urge to be right, it gives me permission to think what I think, do what I do. And this might also be connected to even my personhood, feel to be the person I feel myself, perceive myself to be. Yeah. So that has something of a permission in it. And then we have another reason to be right. Yeah. Underlying the view, the Buddha said that beautifully in one of his discourses. Underneath the view, a statement of this is right and that is wrong. Sometimes there is something like a need, a desire, a wish, what else? A feeling, a mood, yeah. And this need to be right, yeah. When I'm not right, my fear would be that the underlying need, the underlying desire, the underlying feeling, yeah, is wrong as well. Yeah. So if I give up the view, I think I give up the feeling together with it. If I soften the view, I think my needs, I need to give up my needs as well. Yeah. So being called wrong by someone could feel like devaluating your needs, which underlie your view. Yeah. The next reason why we have an urge to be right is very simply, plainly, it feels good. It feels good to be right. It gives a sense of power. It gives a sense of superiority. And on the other side of the coin, avoids feelings of powerlessness and inferiority. So being right gives a sense of power. And that is a two-way street. Those in power can sometimes use their authority to create what is right. Yeah. So together with a sense of being wrong or not right, yeah, there can go along a feeling of powerlessness, a feeling of inferiority in which we do not want to tap. Yeah. And the last aspect I found is that being right, it embellishes the character. Yeah. It feels like a beautiful characteristic of the self to say, oh, I'm a bit smart, I'm a bit clever, I'm a bit wise, I'm not making mistakes, I'm right. And it feels good. Yeah. It feels good. It brings the perception is one of adding a bit of value, of worth to the character. So these are the reasons I found why it can be pretty important to be right. It gives permission to do what you do, if it's connected to your needs and your desires and your feelings, not being right can feel devaluating to them. It brings a feeling of power, a sense of power and superiority with it, and it can feel very nourishing to the self-worth to be right. And of course, the opposite feels like being wrong takes away something, can take away something of the perception of self-worth. Yeah. So far so good. But the Buddha really encouraged us to say, well, have a closer look at what you're stating, claiming here to be right and to be wrong here. A few questions here. Can you be right or wrong about a feeling? Can anyone tell you that your feeling in this moment is right or wrong? Yeah. We say, no, it's just there. Same with an experience. You have your perceptions and your filters, and the other has their perception, their filter, their associations with it, their interpretations of it, past and what they experienced so far. Yeah. So there is not a right and a wrong experience. Yeah. It's just like what builds up out of their sankhara, out of their dynamics, and what builds up for you. Well, same with the interpretations and so on. So what we tap into here now is to say, let's respect, and that is a question to you, and maybe it's some question we generally have. How can we respect our subjective situational experience? Yeah. feelings are always subjective. They are bound to this experiential universe here, yeah, and you have your experiential universe there, wherever you are right now, and that is deeply subjective. Yeah, it's not in the realm of right and wrong. It's not in the realm of truth. Yeah, because the Buddha said, look at how it comes together. Look how your views, your opinions, our opinions start to build. There is something we perceive. Yeah, there's something which touches us, something which happens to us through the senses, through the body. There is some interpretation. Yeah, the usual, oh, this means that. Yeah, this means that. We draw a connection. And finally, there is a conclusion. This means that, and we need to do that about it, this about it. Yeah, and then we have a view. And because we cannot experience everything, something is out of the reach of our touched by the senses. We need to trust a bit in a source, trust a bit in an informational system. Let's take science. Yeah. To say I cannot experience everything. I cannot experience, for example, how those drugs, which I take every morning, how they really, which effect they really have, because they may have a long-term effect. It might take weeks to change something within the physical system. Yeah, I cannot just pop a pill and know what is happening. And I don't, even if I do it for a week or two, I don't know what happens next year and after that and after that and so on. So I need to must rely on a different source of information other than my personal experience, yeah, to tell me a view about that pill or anything else. Yeah. And that is a crucial point, which I notice in our ways of handling views and opinions. We all trust different sources and all do not trust other sources. Yeah. And that is very different. I'm thinking of corona pandemic and all the discussion around vaccination. How much truth has been flying around right, left, and center. And I just have the feeling, well, some people trust a certain source, other people do not trust a certain source. Yeah. And we all have an urge to get some information and to build up some sort of idea of how do I act with this new unknown situation, which I cannot hold against my personal experience, yeah, or not completely, or not solely, yeah. So, what source do I trust in? Yeah, where do I get my information from? And while this is totally okay, I feel so in opposition. I feel so pushed. I feel so pulled, but I need to state this as a truth. This is true. Yeah, this is true, and everything else needs to be wrong because I feel so unsure. I feel so touched by this decision I need to make, or these decisions in the plural, that I need to have a lot of clarity and a lot of strength with this decision. I need to be right about this. Just an example from the past global situations we had where I perceived this to be one of the main urges of our struggle in communication with each other. Now, how do we handle this? Yeah, how do we handle this? I think the first thing which comes to my mind is that I get an ear, like grow myself a third ear for where people, and I myself too, use to talk in a certain way of generalization, of truth speaking, yeah, where it's like right and wrong and only this and black and white, yeah. Then I know I'm in a situation where someone puts pressure, yeah, through the truth, through the generalization, and I'm very likely to react to that. I'm very likely to react to that, to pick up that ball and to put my truth against that. And then we have a happy party of throwing truths to each other. There's also a moment where I need to really soothe and calm myself because the urge of the other to be right will bring up my urge to be right. Yeah. And probably saying to myself, my energy is not worth that. You know, I'm not going to spend my energy and potentially disrupt this relationship by really trying to be right. The other thing which came to my mind when I reflected on that is how vulnerable it feels to be subjective. Yeah. Not to talk in generalizations, not to talk about, one should do that, yeah, or it's always right to do this. We have in German a little pronoun, which is the impersonal pronoun, which is man, like someone should do this. Like it's getting in the very, not you, not me, but someone, like everyone should do that, without really talking to the person opposite me anymore. Maybe you have that in other languages too. I found it helpful to practice with the vulnerability of subjectivity. And what I mean by that is when I notice a generalization conversation starts, I talk about my personal experience. Yeah. And it feels incredibly vulnerable at times to say the other one is uttering truth. And I'm here with my personal, humble experience of one. Yeah. How I feel about this. Yeah. And I try to talk about my inner tearing. Yeah. I can relate to a bit of what you're saying. And what I notice also is this. Yeah. And subjectivity makes us vulnerable because we feel like if I do not use the general we anymore, or one should do, who am I that another one would need to listen to that or adapt to that or take it into consideration? We're dropping down from a general level of what humans should be going towards. Oh, just me. Yeah, and that feels pretty vulnerable. And if it's just me, it's so easy for others to dismiss me, yeah, and subjectivity and that experience of one. And they can tell you something like, "Oh, you're seeing this completely wrong. Yeah, you haven't your perception, your feeling, your urge, your need, all that isn't right." Yeah. And this is a point where I need to have a lot of clarity and strength within myself and to say no other person on this planet has the right to tell that my subjectivity is not the right one. Yeah. They can have a different subjectivity. I'm fine with that. But my perception, yeah, my perception of the world and my experience, that is what is alive and true for me in that moment, as long as I can imagine that others have other versions of reality in that moment. So that helps me to be vulnerable. And sometimes that helps us, this authenticity helps us to come back to the generalizations to what this moment and this situation need. I don't know about you, but these talks about who is right and who is wrong, they often do not touch the level of the communicational need, really. We are discussing back, forth, and center who is right and who is wrong. But what does the situation need, request, want from us? How do we caretake? Yeah. How do we caretake for this moment and this situation? And subjectivity helps me to bring myself, at least, sometimes the other, back to that question: what's really important right now? Yeah. Maybe we cannot figure out who's right and who is wrong. Maybe we will have different perceptions, but what does this situation ask? And what is the pain and what is the problem and what is the need of this situation we're currently both caretaking for? And sometimes some miracles happen, but mindful communication was not perfect. Sometimes in the validation of the different perspective and experience of the other, yeah, to hold the view of the other in respect, there can be an invitation to say, well, can you look at my subjective situational experience? I've listened to yours and I would invite you now to listen to mine. It's not always given that they want to. We can feel the urge to be right in the other, and sometimes we do not even want to hear the different view. Yeah, sometimes that's might be a bit suspicious that this is just the attempt to get them on my side of seeing things. But that can be an indication. Sometimes we can share a bit and maybe open up our words to the more than just this. Yeah. So everything which brings us back from the question of who is right, back to the question of what do we want to do with this, I find very helpful. You might find other ways to handle that and to share later your ways of approaching that. But first of all, let's finish it at this, with this idea of there is an urge to be right in every one of us, and that's okay. And if I can go to the underlying reason why I need to be so right, I might find out where this urge to always battle with views comes from. I can know about the subjectivity of my experience and the subjectivity of your experience. I can see how a view builds up from perception, interpretation, and conclusion. Yeah. And then to have a few thoughts about making yourself vulnerable in a conversation about truth. Yeah, to say, I know no truth, but I know my humble personal experience here, and I know my own tornness in this question and share about that. And that sometimes might invite the other to listen, to share their story, their personal subjective story, and then we can share ours and go away from the realm of generalities and absolute views back to something which is between us, which we can really handle, because we cannot handle truth. It's too big for us in this conversation. And maybe find a way to back from who is right to what do we want to do with this. Okay. Thank you for listening this morning. Now let's drop into meditation. Make yourself comfortable. Find yourself a posture which feels appropriate this morning. And we drop the words. Drop the words. And drop the attention into the body. The next few minutes, we're going to take a bath in our subjective situational experience. We start by bringing the attention into our feet. If you like, you can massage them a bit into the ground just to enliven the awareness in the soles of your feet. And feel whether you want to return to stillness or move a bit. You're always welcome to move in meditation if it feels helpful. And then bring the attention to the feet. Just notice what's going on. And then we shift upwards towards our lower legs, the calves, the shins. Good morning. And you might almost notice how the attention is partially filled with something else, a few thoughts. Not so easy to rest with feet and shins. Just notice, my shin's a bit fragmented this morning, as if the attention would be another body part. So your own attention is like this morning. Bring the attention to the upper legs. This moment's experience of upper legs, and it might be quite silent. It might be awake, there might not be a lot going on. I would bring it to the pelvis, the buttocks, the hips. Just connecting, touching with awareness the different areas of the body. Shifting towards the belly and the chest. Now bringing the attention to the back, the spine, the rib cage. Bring the attention to the shoulders, the arms, the hands. Finally, feeling out the face. And the entirety of the head. And then we practice looking, listening, feeling into what is alive for you right now. Dare I ask, what is true for you right now, in this moment? The answer might be something so simple like I'm having cold feet, or I can't concentrate, or I do not like the question. And rather than changing that or improve that or do anything with it, we can ask, oh, interesting. Thank you for showing me, dear mind. How do I know that? You might know it through the body. You might know it through a movement like a thought or a movement in the heart. You might notice that some of these experiences are unpleasant, and you might see that particularly with these views pop up. I don't like that. I need to change that. I'd rather not have that. Can we bring some curiosity to that and say, oh, that's interesting. Can you show me? Show me this unpleasantness, this hurt, this pain, this friction, this rubbing. And then to hold that and acknowledge that, to say, yes, there is friction, there is unpleasantness. I see that. That's not easy to meet, not easy to be with. Maybe there are emotions, experiences present like boredom or just a vague drifting or a wild gallop of the mind. What if you were going to need so urgently to change that, to say, this is my truth of this moment. Let me feel it out. No pressure on my experience in this moment to change or be any different. So that your sense of who you are this morning is based on experience rather than an image, a role which you have to fulfill. You listen inwardly to the body, its energies, the heart and its dynamics, and the mind. And maybe by listening for a while longer, things show up, a vulnerability shows up, which we'd rather not see in our day-to-day busyness. Maybe the heart says something like, I'm really hurt. Ouch. The past days have been hard on me. Maybe some grief pops up and say, oh, now I remember that I'm sad that this is gone and has changed. Maybe some anger wells up and saying, now that you have finally time to listen, I want to state once more, I don't feel okay with this or that. There might be even something as subtle as a mood which colors experience in general. Maybe not feeling fully safe in this world, or feeling a bit helpless in this world with the many struggles and polarities and challenges. This too is part of the truth of this moment. And when you do not need to find a solution or fix it, to find a way to deal with it or make it go away, maybe you can invite it to just belong. Invite it in. This too is shaping your moment, your perception, your way of being right now. And it's not all who you are, it's just there. And I begin. Fluttering, jumpy, active, fragmented mind tells a story. Maybe there's an urge to get something done and to have it out of the way. Maybe there are questions, something which wants to understand the situation in your life, which is hard. And this jumpy, unruly, not settled mind, that is part two, telling its own story. And once more, we're invited to remember Rumi's guest house, where so many guests come in. Different dynamics, different colors, different tastes. And let's have some compassion for the householder who holds that guest house open for everyone. It must be something to be with all of those dynamics, touched by their energy, touched by their impulses and urges. Wow. And once more, we just come into this listening, broad awareness, broad mindfulness. Mindfulness of metta, which deeply honors and respects our subjectivity of this moment. This is alive, this is present right now, and I'm not overly quickly trying to change and adapt, not before I have respectfully listened. And then we slowly brings body back into the movement and move it in the way which feels appropriate for you. Yawn, sigh, stretch, do whatever feels good.
Today's podcast is an offering to you from our archive of freely available live daily classes. We make wisdom teachings and meditations as freely available as possible to as many people as wish to practice. You can help ensure we can continue to support a worldwide Sangha by leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts, by sharing this with someone who'd be interested, and by offering a small financial support at sangha.live/donate.